Tonight, 5 things are landing in this case at once, and every single one of them matters. The FBI has dropped a formal field office statement, and the language inside that release is being completely misread by half the internet. Nolan's closest friend has finally broken silence, and what he said in a direct, face-to-face conversation with the family reshapes the entire timeline we thought we understood. GPS tracking data and dispatch audio have now been pulled and cross-referenced, and there's a 90-minute window inside that data that has no explanation. An independent autopsy is being pursued by the family, running parallel to and in direct tension with the state's official process. Threats, AI-generated content, and digital harassment are actively targeting people connected to this investigation, and we need to talk about that honestly. We are not here for noise. We are not here for speculation dressed up as fact. We are here to build a case file, methodically, respectfully, and with precision. This is a Nolan Wells case update. File open. Before we go any further, if you have been following this case and you are genuinely frustrated by how much misinformation is flooding social media right now, drop the word file in the comments right now. Because that word tells me exactly who is in this room with me, people who want clarity, not chaos. This channel exists for one specific reason, to separate confirmed facts from internet noise. Not to speculate wildly. Not to name innocent people. Not to chase viral moments. But to sit down with the actual evidence, the actual statements, and the actual legal filings, and walk through them together like the analytical community that we are. If you are new here, this is the space for you. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every update I drop on this case is going to be built on sourced, verified information. Not rumors. Not screenshot theories. Actual documented record. For everyone already here, you already know the standard. Let's get into it. Before Nolan Wells became a headline, before he became a case number, a search coordinate, a GPS data point, he was a person. A real, complete, fully lived human being. And we do not skip this part. Ever. Nolan was a young man known in his community as someone who showed up. Not just physically, but emotionally. The kind of person his friends called first, not because he always had answers, but because he genuinely listened. People who knew him describe a young man with a competitive fire, athletic, disciplined, someone who had put in years of real work to earn his place in spaces that do not hand you anything for free. He came from a family that was present in his life. A family that knew his schedule, knew his plans, and knew, with certainty, that this trip was not some reckless departure from routine. It was ordinary. It was planned. There were commitments waiting on the other side of it, academic deadlines, athletic obligations, specific return dates that had already been communicated to people who were expecting him. That matters enormously from an investigative standpoint. Because one of the early narratives that started circulating online was that this was a chaotic, unplanned situation, a blowout trip with no accountability structure around it. That narrative is false. The people closest to Nolan have been consistent. He had a schedule. He had a return window. He had things to come back to. And the moment those return windows passed without contact, the alarm was not slow. It was immediate. Nolan Wells was not just a case. He was someone's son. Someone's teammate. Someone's first call. We carry that into every section of this breakdown. Let me be precise here, because this is where things are getting genuinely distorted online. The FBI field office release that dropped this week is being described in some corners of social media as the FBI taking over the investigation and essentially declaring foul play. That is not what the statement says. Let's read it for what it actually is. The release confirms that the FBI has entered a support capacity in coordination with local law enforcement. The language used is deliberate, support and coordination, not command, not jurisdiction takeover. There is a massive legal and operational difference between those two things, and the distinction matters for how we read everything that follows. When a federal agency steps into a support role, it typically means one of a few things. The case has elements that cross state lines, there are digital forensics components that require federal resources, or local agencies have formally requested assistance with specific technical aspects of the investigation. None of that automatically implies criminal foul play has been confirmed. It implies the scope of the investigation has expanded, which is significant, but not the same thing. Now, separately, there have been claims circulating online about specific threats made against individuals connected to this case, including family members. Here is what I can tell you. Some of those claims are documented and have been reported to authorities. Others appear to be unverified or amplified beyond their original context. Until there is a formal law enforcement statement specifically addressing those threats, I am not going to stack speculation on top of speculation. Drop a W in the comments if you thought the FBI statement meant they had taken full control of the investigation. Drop an O way if you already understood the support versus command distinction. Because I genuinely want to know how many of you were getting accurate information from your feeds versus how many were getting the distorted version. The official record right now tells us federal resources are engaged, local authority remains primary, and the investigation is active and ongoing. That is the confirmed layer. Everything else is noise until it is sourced. This is the section I want you to pay the most careful attention to, because this is where the case either narrows or opens wide, depending on one very specific word choice. Nolan's closest friend, someone who was present during the events leading up to Nolan's disappearance, has now spoken directly with the family. Not through an attorney. Not through a third-party intermediary. Face to face. And the account he gave has been described by family representatives as significant, cooperative, and in some ways, more complicated than expected. Here is the core nuance I need you to understand, and this is not a small detail. There is a fundamental difference between a witness who assumes someone did something and a witness who directly observed that same action. In legal terms, that difference is enormous. In human terms, it is completely understandable. We do it constantly. We fill in gaps with reasonable assumptions because that is how memory and social interaction work. According to what has been shared publicly, the friend's account includes moments where his knowledge of Nolan's movements transitions from direct observation to assumption. Specifically, and I am being careful here, there appears to be a point in the timeline where the friend believed Nolan had boarded a vessel or moved to a specific location based on what seemed like the obvious next step. Not based on watching it happen with his own eyes. That gap between assumption and direct observation? That is exactly where the 90-minute mystery window lives. If you are following this case as closely as I think you are, drop the word witness below, because this nuance is going to become one of the most critical evidentiary points if this case moves toward any formal legal proceeding. Okay, real talk for a second, because the social media landscape around this case right now is genuinely something. You have got people on TikTok running full detective threads based on screenshots of screenshots. You have got comment sections where people are being named as suspects with zero factual basis, just vibes and conspiracy logic. You have got AI-generated evidence circulating that looks convincing at first glance and falls apart the moment you check a single source. And then, on the other side, you have got the Nolan Wells community. The people who grew up with him, played with him, competed alongside him. And they are not posting theories. They are posting memories. They are posting "this was my guy" content that is heartbreaking and real and completely human. Local institutions, the school, the athletic programs, the community organizations he was connected to, have put out statements of support for the family. Vigils have been held. Fundraisers have been organized for investigative support. That community response is documented, it is consistent, and it stands in sharp contrast to the online noise that is trying to make this case into content. One more thing worth saying clearly: if you see AI-generated images or audio purporting to be from or about Nolan or his family, do not share it. Report it. It is harmful. It is dishonest. And it actively interferes with real investigation by muddying the evidentiary pool. Now we get into the data layer. And this is where the script of what probably happened starts colliding with what the instruments actually recorded. GPS data pulled from devices connected to the vessel and to personal phones in the vicinity has been cross-referenced with marine dispatch audio from the relevant time frame. Here's what that data confirms. The vessel Nolan was associated with experienced a documented mechanical issue. Specifically, evidence consistent with a bilge pump malfunction has been identified. This is not internet speculation. This is consistent with what dispatch audio and vessel condition reports reflect. A bilge pump failure is a real, serious, and relatively common maritime emergency. It means water is entering the hull faster than it can be expelled. That is a physical, verifiable crisis, not a fabricated excuse. Now, here's where the timeline gets precise and deeply troubling. From the last confirmed GPS position of Nolan's associated device to the first documented contact with emergency services, there is a gap. Investigators and the family's private team have both independently identified this window. It sits at approximately 90 minutes of unaccounted movement and communication. During those 90 minutes, no distress signal was formally logged, no additional GPS pings have been publicly confirmed, and the sequence of events that led from point A, last confirmed location, to point B, where the search began, is not cleanly reconstructed yet. Drop the word gap in the comments right now, because this 90-minute window is the single most important unresolved element in this entire investigation. Everything else orbits it. The forensic picture in this case is currently running on two parallel tracks, and they are not moving in perfect coordination. The state's official autopsy process is ongoing. A formal cause and manner of death determination has not been publicly released as of this update. That process takes time. Toxicology alone can run weeks to months, and rushing a public statement before the science is complete is something responsible medical examiners do not do. Simultaneously, the family has pursued and is in the process of arranging an independent autopsy, a completely legal and increasingly common response when families have concerns about the thoroughness or transparency of the official process. The family's legal team has been explicit. This is not an accusation against the state examiner. It is a parallel layer of accountability. Now, the audio. There has been a clip circulating widely that was initially described as dispatch audio capturing a specific verbal exchange at a critical moment in the timeline. An attorney connected to this case, I want to be careful about which attorney and in what capacity, issued a walkback statement clarifying that the clip had been either misidentified or stripped of context in a way that changed its meaning significantly. Tone matters here. A walkback from an attorney is not the same as a lie being exposed. It can mean the original characterization was premature, the clip was edited before reaching public circulation, or additional context emerged that changed the interpretation. What it does confirm is that at least one piece of viral audio evidence needs to be treated with significant caution until the full, sourced, authenticated version is available. Digital forensics, phone extraction, Snapchat records, messaging threads are confirmed to be part of the active investigation. A mutual simultaneous inspection protocol is reportedly being discussed, meaning both the family's independent team and law enforcement would review specific digital records together, rather than sequentially. That kind of agreement, if formalized, is significant. Drop forensics below if you want a dedicated breakdown of the autopsy process and what independent examinations can and cannot legally establish. The phrase grand jury referral has been floating around this case, and I want to address it directly because it is being wildly misinterpreted. A grand jury referral does not mean charges have been filed. It does not mean a suspect has been identified publicly. It does not mean an arrest is imminent. What it means is that a prosecutor is presenting evidence to a panel of citizens to determine whether probable cause exists to issue an indictment. It is a procedural step, an important one, but it is the beginning of a potential legal process, not the conclusion of one. If and when this case reaches a grand jury referral, that will be significant. But we are not there yet based on confirmed reporting. The funeral services for Nolan Wells brought together a community that was visibly, genuinely devastated. High-profile athletes and local figures attended or sent formal statements of support. The family, in their public remarks, struck a balance that I find genuinely remarkable given the circumstances: grief, yes, but also a stated commitment to truth over speed. They have repeatedly asked the public not to rush to conclusions, not to harass people online, and to trust the process they are actively engaged in. The digital harassment piece bears repeating. Multiple people tangentially connected to this case have reported receiving threatening messages, having their personal information shared without consent, and being targeted by coordinated online campaigns. This is not justice. This is obstruction dressed up as advocacy. Let's close this file the right way, with clarity, not drama. White heavy checkmark confirmed facts. FBI has entered a formal support capacity. Not command authority. GPS data and dispatch audio exist and are being actively analyzed. A documented mechanical issue, bilge pump consistent failure, is evidence. The key witness has spoken directly with the family. Independent autopsy is being pursued by the family's legal team. Digital forensics, including phone extraction, are confirmed. Active. Nolan had a structured return schedule. The trip was planned and ordinary? Unresolved questions. The 90-minute gap between last GPS ping and first emergency contact. Unexplained. Full authenticated dispatch audio. Not yet publicly verified. State autopsy. Cause and manner of death not yet formally released. Specific deleted or inaccessible digital data. Status pending grand jury referral. Not confirmed as of this update. The precise nature of the threats reported. Partially documented, partially unverified. Nolan Wells deserved a life that continued past that trip. He deserved to come back to his schedule, his family, his teammates, and his future. The fact that he did not, that we are sitting here building a case file instead of watching him live that life, is a loss that belongs to real people who loved him for real reasons. We are going to keep following this with the same standard we started with: sourced, precise, and respectful. Drop open in the comments if you are staying with this case until there are real answers. Subscribe if you found this breakdown valuable. And share it with one person who is getting their information from the wrong place. This has been a Nolan Wells case update. File remains open.